I just wanted, and but you went back, you stayed. You guarded.
Well, I know, I lived in Manhattan for a number of
Oh, you
years,
did,
you
okay.
know, after the army, sure. But why did I go back? I had a girlfriend from Bayside who I wound up marrying, and she wanted a house in the country kind of thing. There's something like inertia, you know, once you're there and you have the house and you have the kids, and where are you gonna go, you know? Most I found it convenient, because Manhattan is right there, the two airports are there, the Hamptons are there. So it was good, you know, it was, career-wise, we could have moved back into the city, I suppose.
I mean, you got great material out of Long Island, so,
Yeah,
you know.
some more Long Island stories there, you know, and now it's really inertia. Actually have a 7-year-old at home now, believe it or not, and he likes Long Island, he tells me, I don't know, you know, so, we're there. It's not, there's enough there to write about if you wanted to, you can't continuously do it. You can do the Hamptons, you can do the North Shore, you can do the Gold Coast. I just find it convenient to New York and airports and hey, friends, family, you know.
I'm getting, we're both getting in trouble, particularly if I remember. And I didn't, you know, I won't go further with that. I will say that being born and then raised up to a certain point in Manhattan and then having your parents move to Long Island to give you a better life is a little scary. But anyhow, I do think that, you know, I'm intrigued by the idea that where you write and what one's experience and it forms a lot of what you write, but on the other hand, there's a kind of intrinsic quality to people that infuses what they, you know, how they see the world and how they write about the world, certainly.
Yeah, well, and you know, my two children, who were adult children in their 30s, got to Manhattan as soon as they could, and well, now they're both in Brooklyn, but you know, yeah, I mean, but I was born in the city, and I grew up, you know, in Queens, and my father was a builder, so we moved out to Long Island, and we were kind of like pioneers, you know, with the development of houses with no paved roads. I mean, this is after World War II. These were building, what do they say, building homes for heroes. It was all the returning veterans, and he was a returning veteran himself. It was kind of fun. It was a little bit more bucolic back then. You know, but you don't realize that around you all of a sudden everything is getting, you know, more and more congested. And one day you wake up in a traffic jam and you say, oh, imagine, you know.
Had you wanted to be, you talked about the career part, had you wanted to be a writer growing up?
I thought about it, you know, I think, you know, maybe our heroes in those days, when I was in college, certainly people like Hemingway, people who led, you know, interesting lives and did interesting things that they wrote about, as opposed to a lot of writers now who do nothing interesting and write about interesting things they wish they could have done. You know, and then of course the experience in 3 years in the Army, you know, kind of made me think that maybe I wanted to do this. Also in college I was reading James Bond like everybody else did in the early 60s. And Ian Fleming makes it made it look easy. He's like an Agatha Christie, make it look easy, or Conan Doyle. It's not that easy, but they are such great writers that, and it's just direct writing that just fascinates you. And everybody wanted to be, not Ian Fleming, but they wanted to be James Bond. But by extension, of course, you wanted to be maybe Ian Fleming. And then in college, I got so many comments from professors. I didn't like to do research. I didn't like to do a lot of hard work. So just fake it, you know, fake the term papers and everything. I remember one guy said to me, you know, there's a difference between bull and cow. Cow was safe. Cow was you did your research, you know, it's pretty dull, but it's all there. And bull is obviously bull, you know. He says, you're much heavier on the bull. You're making stuff up here. Because that's what term papers were about. You know, he's supposed to research. He says, but you are a good writer, you know. Another professor was well written. So yeah, I got a lot of that, I got a lot of reinforcement. But yeah, not thinking about being a novelist, maybe it was. It was probably sure it was their subconscious.
Yeah. All right, I'll open it up to audience questions here. And so I was wondering before, I was going to say before when everybody raised their hand about the Gold Coast, I was going to say, people must have a couple of questions specifically about the Gold Coast or memories about it. It's a book that has stayed with me for a long time, makes me want to reread it. And so you don't have to ask about the Gold Coast, but general questions. I just was curious. You know, I had never read any of the reviews of it when I read it.
Yeah, that's good.
I try not to read reviews of anything I'm going to read or see, and I didn't read them afterward either. So it was interesting to hear you say how, you know,
Yeah.
I obviously knew it was a big book that had gotten a lot of attention. So anyway, general questions, yes.
Actually, that was the very first book I read of yours, was Gold Coast, partly because that's where I grew up. And so
Whereabouts in town?
Cold Spring Harbor.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so I've met you once before and I mentioned the references and it was, you were so on the money in many things. So it's still a favorite of mine.
Thank you.
But, and that's probably why it's close to my heart, just because I grew up in that area. I had a little bit different question for you, because I have heard you speak and I know your history and how you got to write. Do you have an opinion about some of the best-selling authors like yourself that are now writing books with someone else? Is that a politically incorrect question?
No.
Well, you've written one, you collaborated on one book.
Mayday, right, but that was a true collaboration.
As opposed to you talking about like James Patterson who hires somebody to write a book. Okay.
Yes.
Well, Walter's been collaborating forever, and that's, Tom Block was a USA pilot, I could have only done this book with him. But, I know what you're saying, really, somebody else is writing the book, and it's like years ago I was looking to buy a Ford Explorer, and I found that it was an Eddie Bauer. I said, I didn't know Eddie Bauer was an engineer, but no, Eddie Bauer was not an engineer. Eddie Bauer did the interior or something, So it was an Eddie Bauer Ford Explorer, right? But not really. I don't think Eddie's even seen one, So obviously you're using a brand name, and this is what some people do. Even worse is when somebody's having a book ghostwritten and that doesn't put the thing. I think you're being honest up front when you say, and we use James, I know the guy is a good guy, I like him. James Patterson with. It's okay, the consumer knows what they're getting and I still buy it and it's fine and we'll never know how much, Jim Patterson wrote and how much some of them, though I do know that Clark Hustle writes for the Sun, it's a true collaboration, I know Clive. And so I think it depends author by author. When you're getting Patterson, let's be realistic. He's not writing 5 books a year. You're getting 5 different authors. And he's got his name on it. Other authors, however, are truly collaborating and it's kind of an exchange of ideas. So, I haven't done it myself, so for that.
It's not really a collaboration, but it, it brings up the issue of people would compare it to, though I don't know that it is like School of Leonardo, so that the way artists in the Renaissance and after had workshops, and they did the minor angels, and the artists would come in and paint Jesus or paint Mary, but I'm not sure which part James is painting anymore. I mean, I've known people who've worked with him, and they get an outline from him and an idea, and they write the book, and he goes back and he does play with it some. I don't know that it's a moral issue because it's not. It's told. You are aware of it, right? What you're getting. So you're getting something that's been brand stamped by this writer or that writer, though it's been created somehow in another way.
Which is a big difference between the true ghost written, that there are many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, a lot of non-fiction versus ghost written, but that's more acceptable when a movie star or somebody, sometimes they don't even put the names on them, or the names of the collaborator, or sometimes they won't even thank the person or acknowledge the person on the inside.
No, the bigger movie stars want to actually have their ghost writers killed.
Right.
I did work with one once, and it was a very unhappy experience, I thought. But,
the ones that tell us who.
I can't. I signed a non-disclosure or I would be killed. So, yeah, I don't know what, I mean, I think that's sort of standard practice, and not the killing part, but the other thing. Some more questions from Mr. DeMille?
So I've read all of your books, and you're one of my favorites.
Thank you.
You're one of the few others that consistently makes me laugh out loud. Can you talk about the genesis, and especially the John Corey character, and where you're so funny, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, one of the conventions of fiction used to be, if it's funny, it's something else, it's not literature, but one of my books, it was the Charm School. I started getting a little, tired of it, bored with the book while I was writing it. And I had a guy make a couple of wisecracks, and I made more wisecracks. And I had an editor at the time who was just zeroed in on this and said, she wanted it out. I said, no, it's not coming out because it just lightens the moment, even though it's a heavy moment. Then I got bold, so by the time the Gold Coast came around, I getting full throttle. And the feedback from the readers, which is the most important thing to me, was always positive. But by the time John Corey came around, this guy was like totally, your stand-up comic, and but understandable because he was an NYPD, and this is kind of his humor. In this book, the new book, The Quest, when I wrote it originally, there was no humor in it at all, but because it was meant to be grim, and it sounded grim, and it probably read grim. But now I've livened it up a little bit. My main character, Frank Purcell, he's always channeling John Corey a little bit, but not too much, So. But it works, and I think a lot of writers, I'm not saying I invented it by any means. A lot of the British writers, they're very dry humor. They write about serious subjects, and you can still get a chuckle. But I think more and more writers are not. They're doing it, they're not listening so much to the editors. The editors have changed, the old-time editors. They didn't want first person. They'd always say to you, suicide notes are written in the first person, don't forget that. You're not writing comedy here, you're writing a sit-down novel. But again, that's another generation, we got a lot more freedom and flexibility.
I think writing humor is really hard too. I mean, writing funny. And I think The Gold Coast is one of the funniest books I've ever read. So I think it's very difficult.
The people who I was writing about did not think it was that funny. And I was banned from the country club for about almost 7 or 8 years. The Junior League invited me to the Creek Country. This is when I succeeded. Junior League invited me to the Creek Country Club to give a talk, and I accepted. And then they called me up very apologetic and said, we select down these talk. We need to find it. No, they were okay with it. It was a funny thing. They said the Creek said, no, we need to find another venue, which we did. And I said, well, I can't take a joke, But
Who said no?
the Creek Country Club said no.
The country club.
The country club said no. And the Junior League had invited me, so I thought, this is okay. The Junior League thought it was okay, But no, it was, and then I went back as I was actually not banned per se, but I was, not invited back. But it's kind of neat. I think, it's like making Nixon's enemy list, It's good for publicity.
Yeah. There was another,
Do you go on Goodreads and read what people say, or do you
I haven't
care
done
about
Goodreads
negative?
in months and months, probably since The Quest came out.
Do you care if you see negative stuff? Do you just brush it off, or?
You gotta brush it off, There's been a lot of negative with The Quest on, I don't know about Goodreads, I actually should look at it. But Amazon reader reviews, very negative stuff, and they didn't get the book. They wanted John Corey, they weren't happy that it was a rewritten book, like who cares if you didn't read the first one? But these are reader reviews, and you gotta pay attention to some extent because you can glean something from all of this. A book like this, we got like a good. I did look at the Amazon review. I think it was 75-star reviews and maybe 120 one-star reviews, which is a very unusual distribution. There's stuff in between, but not a lot in between. When you get a distribution like that, you realize that people who gave it 5 stars, it's a healthy number, like 80 and 121 star reviews, and very little in between. It's not the book. The book is fine. You know, you're not doing 85-star reviews. It wasn't my family who gave me. I mean, you know, most people I didn't know. But the other people didn't get the book, didn't like it, and that's okay, you know. So, the things that annoy me, and it probably annoyed you too, Jonathan, was when you get a real review in a newspaper, and the review was so far off, didn't read the book, or, you know, was giving you a political review, a politically correct review, or something. You know, they're not really reviewing the book, they're reviewing you. So, when that happens, I usually manage to work the name of the reviewer into my next book. John Anderson from Newsday. I made fun of him. Another Newsday reviewer, I killed him in Lions. One on the airway, yes.
That's good because then they're scared to do it again, or they don't care,
But these are bad reviews. There are bad reviews that are actually right on, and it's okay to go to review with. Found a problem with the book, you know.
Reviewers with an agenda.
An agenda, exactly.
Or the reviewers who you can tell have not read your book are the most distressing, I think. So,
Yeah.
But I always say, they don't know me, how could they hate me that much?
Several of your books have been turned into films. How's that experience for you? Do you get involved in it all, or do you just hand it over to us?
Short answer is I hand it over, yeah. Only one was a feature film, The General's Daughter, and the other two, one was, Mayday was, right with Tom Block, was the CBS TV movie with Aidan Quinn, and Word of Honor was a TNT movie when nobody knew what TNT was, with Don Johnson, right, Don Johnson. Nobody saw it because TNT was fairly new then, and they did a great job on the Word of Honor, but they did a good job on Mayday. It was a CBS, you know, put some money behind it. But and I never went to either, you know, shooting because it wasn't worth it. It's kind of like, you know, it was TV, so. But I did go on the set to the feature film, and I knew the producer. I knew the producer, Mace Newfeld, and Sherry Lansing at the time was a friend from New York, and she was head of Paramount Studios. So they always invite the author anyway. They usually want you for 3 days. 3 days is more than enough time to be there on the set. It was okay experience, you know. I mean, they gave me the script, which, you know, it's a courtesy. You don't have to. I didn't ask for it particularly, and I looked at the script, I made some suggestions. And the movie itself, although it got bad reviews, got good box office. I mean, people went to see it, went back to see it and told their friends, obviously. Got great box office. It was one of these things that, you know, somehow just hurt the reviewers, and I have no idea why. But it was an okay experience. I had an unusually good experience. I knew the people making the film, and William Goldman did the final screenplay, and then he's a genius. I don't know him that well, but I did know him, and he kind of got to the crux of the, you know, he took these 5 or 6, 8 versions of bad screenplays and kind of put it together. Screenplay is what kills a movie faster than anything, because these things are bought. All my books have been optioned or bought by major studios or by major independents. So it was never a matter of money, or they could make any one of them. All I needed was a screenplay. And every one of them has had bad screenplays, multiple bad screenplays. General's Daughter came that close to not being made, except Sherry Lansing was so much behind it, and she finally talked William Goldman into rewriting the screenplay. That's how it got made. But it's usually the screenplay, and you probably agree, it's not, a lot of screenwriters out there don't know what they're doing. Maybe they can write original screenplays on their own, but you'll have to go see the movies and you'll see that, you know, there's not a lot of intelligence out there. I hate to say it. My own son is a UCLA film graduate, but he's a good writer. He's actually a good writer.
The problem is that too much is done by committee. And
Absolutely.
But William Goldman, if you've ever read Adventures in the Screen Trade, is just a great book, and he wrote Butch Cassidy, and he wrote a whole bunch of classic.
He wrote Marathon Man.
Marathon Man, yeah, and his book Adventures in the Screen Trade is one of the funniest, terrific books about Hollywood I think ever written. So I'll take one last question, and we'll just go over and have some books signed. Last question.
Yeah, when are you going to have a sequel to The Panther? You left those guys hanging right there.
I'm actually now working on a John Corey book, and, but it's not, I did something different, and I think it was the first time I was saying it, I just figured it out a couple of weeks ago. John Corey is moving from the Mideast terrorist unit to the Russian unit. The Russians are not considered terrorists, but there was a terrorist unit, and he's going to be following Russians. I think the Russians are kind of like the new bad guys, and a lot more interesting. And I kind of got tired of the, Arabic terrorism thing and Muslim, Islamic terrorism.
It's more like organized crime.
Yeah, but they're into more than organized crime. And in my book, not in reality, my book is trying to blow up America, but that's what I'm writing now. And it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a kickback to the Cold War, and the characters are more interesting, a little bit more interesting, I think. And he's at a different beat, so to speak. And Kate, his wife, is still in the Mideast terrorism unit, so they don't see each other that much, making for a great marriage, I think. And so it's a different book. It's part of the series, but it's a much has a different.
There's some unfinished business there, so as part of the hints, is Paul Brennan in the book?
Yeah, and Paul Brennan comes back, and the bad guy, the guys who try to kill him,
Right, yeah.
they're back. Of course, we have to get them back and settle that.
So this is the next book, the book you're working on?
Working on it right as we speak.
This man is ready. He's
I'll give my $20 right now.
If it goes
I
right.
think you just got your 20 bucks. You got that, right?
Shooting for fall next year.
Okay.
It's not about November next
So
year.
you didn't have much of a break between finishing one, because you only finished this book in the summer.
Yeah, no, I didn't, but I just turned the outline in, so, of the new one. I mean, I was on publicity tour, so I wrote it everything again.
Right.
But I wanted to get started on it, and just, do it. It's the, people interested in how the business works. It's the last book in the contract. So it's contract time for me, so. When a writer's writing the last book in the contract, it's always the best book, 'cause,
Right. Well, anyway, we're going to go over here briefly so that Mr. DeMille can sign the books you buy. And I hope you'll join us over there and say hello and get your book signed. And you were going to say something?
No.
Thank you
That's
very
what I
much.
said.